Welcome back to the show. I'm Guy Benson. Joining me now is Chad Wolf, former acting secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. He is now a visiting fellow at the Heritage Foundation. He joins me now. Mr. Secretary, good to have you back on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Let's turn to the Biden administration and immigration. It's a topic that you and I have discussed previously on the show. And I said this on Fox News Channel. I was on with Harris Faulkner earlier. I am not a hardcore hardliner on immigration issues. I'm not as conservative as some other conservatives are on that particular issue. I'm open to certain compromises, DREAM Act, that kind of thing. However, you can push me only so far. And what we're seeing already from the Biden administration, number one, they seem to confirm yesterday that they are going to deprioritize for deportation illegal immigrants who, of course, have violated our laws and sovereignty to be here in the first place, who then commit additional crimes such as DUI, assault, solicitation, and a few others. They're saying that basically the federal government's going to pass on deporting you. You kind of get a pass for crimes, including assault, simple assault, right. DUI. And from your perspective, I wonder what you make of that decision, what kind of message that sends to the world, what kind of incentives that announcement might erect.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think it's a very dangerous signal that they're sending. This is about law and order. This is about borders or no borders. And if we're a country of law and order, and you're a country of law, then you allow law enforcement to enforce those laws as Congress has passed those laws. And what we're seeing, unfortunately, right now with the Biden administration is they are choosing, very similar to what the Obama administration did, they are choosing which laws to enforce that suit their priorities. And I just say that that's simply the wrong approach. I will say it will have a lasting negative morale effect on DHS law enforcement officers, whether they're at ICE or whether you're a CBP law enforcement officer on that southwest border. So there's a number of things. You mentioned one of them, Guy, but there's a number of other policies and executive orders that they have taken that not only fly in the face of the rule of law, makes it more difficult for DHS law enforcement to do their job, and then really at the end of the day is an incentive for additional illegal migrants to come into the country. So all three of those are bad signals, and I think it's the wrong approach.
Yeah, I mean, totally. I think it's nuts, and it shouldn't be that controversial, in my opinion, to say if you have violated our laws and are here illegally to begin with, and then you commit another crime, I don't even really care what that additional crime is, that should be deportable. And if we're now parsing words saying, oh, well, it's a DUI, but if they don't hit anyone, is it really so bad? Or is simple assault different than other types of assault? And should that technically qualify as violent enough? It's like, no, this is two strikes already. In my view, two strikes and you're out. One strike and you're out, I think, would be a reasonable position for a country that defends its borders to have. Two strikes certainly is far past my threshold for tolerating this sort of thing, and I think a lot of Americans would agree. You sort of referenced, I think, something else that the Biden administration has done, and I think this is a particularly bad decision. I get it that the Democrats hated Trump. They hated his rhetoric on immigration. They hated some of his more heavy-handed policies, the so-called Muslim ban, a few other things. But at least from my perspective, one of the biggest successes from the Trump administration was hammering out agreements with the government of Mexico and the government of 3 Central American countries that alleviated our system, because we were getting completely overwhelmed. There was a crisis at the border. We were talking about kids in cages and family separations and all of that mess based on some legal obligations that people were saying that they were seeking asylum and they were in U.S. territory. That was a status quo that was leading to chaos. So what the Trump administration did was sign these agreements with these other countries south of us that prevented people from entering the United States and having their asylum cases adjudicated first. They were held elsewhere, which was a huge help to our personnel, to our infrastructure that we had at the border, and it mitigated the crisis to a very significant degree. The Biden team has now announced in the last 24, 48 hours that they are going to scrap those agreements with those countries, and they're not replacing them with anything. They don't have a backup plan. They're just saying, Trump did it, it's bad, we can do something better, and therefore that, I think, carefully negotiated situation is now over, which to me feels like it's another invitation to bring back all the incentives that led to the huge crisis in the first place, the kids in cages, whatever you want to refer to that as. We've seen unaccompanied minors doubling, the arrival doubling at our southern border since December. And I just wonder, is there any justification policy-wise to eliminate what, in my view, is one of the most successful diplomatic endeavors related to immigration that Trump was able to achieve?
No, I think it would be very difficult to have the new administration point to exactly why they are canceling the asylum cooperative agreements, the ACAs, as you've mentioned, but not only that, but the migrant protection protocols, which is that Remain in Mexico program that we have with Mexico. So all of these are bilateral agreements negotiated not only with DHS, the State Department, and these individual countries, but they haven't really explained why they are canceling these. And, of course, they have nothing in place. So if we go back to 2019 with the crisis that we saw, over 100,000 individuals coming across that border a month for several months in a row, two things helped address that. One was MPP, Migrant Protection Protocols, and then the ACAs were another. And so having both of those deal with that crisis and got that crisis under control, to remove both of those, which is essentially what they are in the process of doing.
Yeah, with no backup
it's going to cause another crisis. You're now going back to 2017 and 18 as we saw the crisis build and build and build into a crescendo until 2019. So it's very concerning on a number of fronts. And I would just say on the ACAs, the idea there is to make sure that individuals who are truly being prosecuted or fear, have a claim of fear of some kind, can seek protection closest to their home, so that when that issue is resolved in their home country, that then they can return. And that's what those ACAs are designed to do. The Biden administration has said that that's what they want to do. They want to make sure that people can seek protection as close to home as possible. But at the end of the day, I think the new administration wants those individuals resettled here in the U.S., and I think that's where we differ. We want to make sure that they stay as close to home as possible so that they can go back, be a part of their society, a part of their country, and build up that Central American region.
And the agreements that were put into place helped get rid of, or at least significantly decrease, the unmanageable, unwieldy crisis. And if you're then going to strip those agreements away and go back to how things were before, which were completely out of hand, if you hated kids in cages, you're going to get more of it based on these moves, which seem to me to be totally politically motivated, signaling we're not Trump, policy details and implications be damned. And I think that's incredibly reckless and foolish. We've got to leave it there for now. Former acting secretary of DHS, Chad Wolf, now a visiting fellow at the Heritage Foundation, my guest here on the Guy Benson Show. Mr. Secretary, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for watching the Heritage Foundation's YouTube channel. With more than 500,000 members, we are the nation's largest conservative research and education institution. We believe the principles and ideas of the American founding are worth conserving and renewing. Please help us further our mission by subscribing to this channel and sharing our videos with your family and friends.